Thanks for having me.
First question, and I guess the most important one, why Romania? What made you want to come here and film a show here?
That's a good question. About 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, I was in Brazil paragliding, which is kind of a passion of mine, a hobby of mine. And I met this other paraglider, this German guy who had apparently been to like 100 countries and flown. The flying season was ending in Brazil. The conditions were getting worse and worse. So I said to him, Werner, where is a place that I can go and fly? The season's beginning and it's real off the beaten path, not a lot of pilots. And he said, try Romania. So I came to Brasov. I didn't have any contacts. I remember walking around from sports store to sports store showing pictures of paraglider. I was like, do you know anybody who does this? And they were like, no, try the next sports store. And eventually I came to one where there was a young guy, like 17, and he did that in his free time, and then he introduced me to the whole paragliding scene in Romania. Spent a month there and I had a blast. So I had great memories of the paragliding. I remember distinctly the Romanian hospitality, and I remember all the magnificent Saxon fortified churches. And so it was always in my mind to come back. And this season for our show, we're filming in Europe, and I've been pushing to put in a Romanian episode, and finally we had the chance.
This is your second or third season?
This is our third season.
Well, tell me a little bit about your show. What makes Road Less Traveled different from other travel shows?
So Road Less Traveled is an off-the-beaten-path travel show, but there are many of those. There are a couple things that make our show unique. One is that most of what I do on the show, any traveler can do. Even though we do some pretty exceptional things, I think any traveler with the right gumption and moxie, determination, can make these things happen for themselves. And two, I would say at least 50% of our content we get after our boots hit the ground. So it's not highly pre-produced or fixed. Most travel shows are extremely fixed. It's all set up. The host just comes in and knocks it out. And they film them in 4 days. We take 2 weeks to film one of our episodes because we land, we have a couple ideas, but we talk to locals, and sometimes things happen and then it goes in a different direction.
What parts of Romania have you been filming thus far?
We filmed a lot in Bucharest. We did a segment with Margarita Nestor, and her story inspired me. It got the wheel turning. And again, we had a plan, a loose plan, but right in that moment, I came up with a new plan. In Romania, I said, you know what? She's translated all the 3,000 films under communism. And I remembered in Brasov, the first time I was here, there were a lot of guys walking around with cold mountain crew shirts because they filmed it here. And I thought, you know what? Romania is a top destination to make movies because it's cost effective, you have great crews, you have great locations, you can make it look like anywhere. So I said, hey, you know what? Let's make our own movie in Romania. I called the executive producer and I said, look, I need a budget. We're going to make a small movie. We hired actors, and right away it gave us a fantastic thread. So instead of saying, okay, now I'm going to see the castles, now I'm going to see the Danube, now I'm going to do this, now I have a reason, I have a connection between them all. I'm going to go film in the castles for a critical scene, and then we need to go film here, and then we need to go film there. And as we're filming the movie, simultaneously we're shooting the TV show, and when we take a break from filming the movie, I go into TV presenter mode, and I'm like, by the way, these Saxon castles were built during the era when the Turks were roaming through Romania, and they called the Saxons, the modern day Germans, and said, look, in exchange for land rights, you need to protect us, and then they were built, blah, 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 blah. So I get to talk a little bit about Romanian history, show some of the fantastic landmarks here, and we've made a really cool movie for $750. We made a really cool short movie. You couldn't do this quality of a movie anywhere else in the world with the quality of actors we have and the amazing locations.
What do you think about Romania so far? How has your experience been?
Fantastic. It actually, it's matched up a lot with my expectations. You know, sometimes in life, you go to a place, you make a special memory, and then you come back 10 years later and you say, I shouldn't have come back. I should have left that memory alone because I had such a great time and now things have changed. Maybe my favorite beach, it was so pristine, and I came back and there's a McDonald's and there's a 7-Eleven and tons of ugly tourists, ugly in behavior, not looks, you know, this whatever, it's just ruined. So usually I'm an advocate of not going back to a place where you have a special memory. Leave it alone, go somewhere new. However, I've been pleasantly surprised coming back to Romania because all the things I loved about it are still here. The Romanian hospitality, I had great hospitality extended to me before and this time again. And those Saxon castles that I loved before are still there, still many of them abandoned. You can run around and explore it like a little kid. No other tourists around, you don't have to buy a ticket. You can have a real experience where you can almost imagine you're alone in there, looking over the walls at the invaders, getting ready to fight. This is the first time I went to the Danube, and that's a real special place too. You know what, it's probably the most important waterway in Europe, so much history, and such a beautiful spot on top of that.
Yes, definitely. Well, how about the food? Have you tried local cuisine?
I have. I love sarmale. That's fantastic. And I think one thing that Romania really excels in are great soups and stews. I've had the best soup and stew in my life in Romania. Just full of vegetables and meat and rich flavor. And now that it's becoming late fall, that kind of meal just hits the spot when you've been out filming in the cold and the crisp air and you come and have a hearty stew.
You know when the season will be airing? What episode will Romania be?
Romania is going to be about episode 11 or 12. So it's going to be towards the end of the season. It'll be one of our last European episodes. And I suspect it's going to appear on air in America very soon. Within 2 months, the American audience is going to see this.
Cool. Well, we've talked a lot about what you liked about Romania, but is there something you dislike about Romania or something that, I don't know, is not so good?
Something I dislike about Romania. I mean, usually I have my gripes. There's certain places I love. For example, India. I've had great memories there, but every time I leave India, I'm thinking, get me the fuck out of this place. However, I could easily spend another month here. In fact, I'm already scheming of a way to come back to Romania. I've already talked to our Romanian fixer about lining up another Romanian episode. And barring that, I think I'll come back and rent an apartment in Bucharest at some point and just write. I have too many distractions in LA. I want to write, and it's like, hey, let's go surf. Hey, let's do this, let's do that. All my friends are there. But here, I think it could be a great place to relax, write down things, and great environment, real friendly people. There's nothing that comes to mind, honestly. The roads could be a little better, I suppose. It takes a long time to go from A to B. But I didn't expect there to be super highways and, you know, Autobahn or anything.
Yeah.
That's the key to life. You got to have low expectations, but high hopes.
Where are you from?
I'm from Peoria, Illinois, which is a small city in the Midwest. And I spent most of my childhood in the suburbs. And let me tell you something about the suburbs. It's the worst place to grow up because it's neither here nor there. I would rather be in the city and have culture and cuisine and, you know, meet people from all around the world and art, or be in the country and learn how to fix a car with my own hands and do all those kind of manly do-it-yourself skills. But the suburbs, for culture, you go to some Italian restaurant, which really isn't Italian or Mexican, and they have items on the menu they wouldn't recognize in Mexico. And you go to the Quickie Lube to change your oil. So I guess it was a good place to be from. As we say, it's a good place to be from. It's not a good place to be. Sorry to my my friends back in Illinois. I am happy, though, that it instilled me with certain values. For example, I keep my word absolutely, and I'm always on time. And if I make an appointment, I'm there. But at a young age, we moved to Hong Kong for 3 years, and then the Philippines for 4 years, and then we came back to Illinois. So I went from being in the suburbs to having this really unique experience overseas. When I was in the Philippines, the maids used to sneak us into their villages when my parents were away on business trips. So I got to see the real authentic thing. Then we came back to Illinois, and I was once again stuck in the suburbs. And this, I think, is when the wanderlust first started coming within me, because I realized there was another world out there. If you're born in the suburbs or you're born in a small town and you stay there, you're fine. But once you taste the adventure of the outside world, you can't go back. It's a two-edged sword. So once I had that exposure and I came back to Illinois, I was dying to blast out again. And as soon as I had a chance, I was gone and I hit the road running.
Yeah, now you're an actor and a travel show host. I was about to ask you what made you want to be a travel show host, although this is kind of a dream job.
Yeah, it is a great job. I mean, there's a lot of work to it too. Sometimes I think people think we're just sitting in the hotel and having drinks and walking down the beach. I mean, we have a very small crew, so I wear a lot of hats. I write the show, I host it, I do a lot of the pre-production. So I'm thinking ahead to the next episode. I'm still finishing up the script from the last episode, and I'm trying to arrange things in this episode and come up with a creative way of spinning it. I'm not complaining though, it's better than flipping burgers. First season was only 8 episodes, and we got it done in 63 days in India. Our second season was 12 episodes. That took a while, I can't recall. This season is 15 episodes, and we've spent the majority of the year on the road, maybe 170 days on the road. The longest stretch was 3 solid months, and during those 3 months, there wasn't one day that I wasn't doing some kind of work, ruminating about the show, planning for the next thing, writing something. So it's great stuff. It's mentally exhausting, but there's nothing I would rather do.
Well, how do you manage to have a personal life? How do you reconcile your career with the personal life?
Well, I don't really have a personal life, or I do and I don't. I mean, it's difficult for me to have a traditional kind of relationship. The peripatetic lifestyle sounds appealing at first. Oh, you're a travel show host. But when the rubber meets the road and you're gone for 3 months, yeah, most girls don't appreciate that. So I've had, let me say, I don't necessarily judge the quality of a relationship by its duration. That is to say, I've known people who've been in 10-year mediocre relationships, uninspiring, they hardly talk to each other at dinner. And I think I've had 1-month relationships that had more passion, more growth, more excitement, more energy than this person's 8-year relationship. I mean, we truly connected. We really had a moment in time together and we left better people. And for me, that's the gold standard of any relationship. Are you leaving a better person than when you came in? Whether it's 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 10 years, are you leaving a better person? Did you grow? Did you develop? And if yes, it was success. It was a success. So in life, there's always a sacrifice to make, no matter what path you choose. And you know, I have to make my sacrifices, but I will enjoy what I do experience and what I do have.
Well, how long do you want to be doing this, you know, travel show host, traveling the world? Do you want to ever, I don't know, settle down or go back to LA or?
Yeah, I don't know, honestly, if I want to be doing hardcore stuff, handling cobras and having things inserted in my arm and jumping off pole vaults when I'm 70. So I think I would, eating tarantulas, I think I'd eventually like to transition more behind the camera, do the writing, do the creative thinking, a little directing. I think that's going to be the natural progression.
Yes, well, talking about traveling the world and experiences, tell me, what's the best memory and what's the worst or the most terrifying thing that ever happened to you on the road?
Worst terrifying thing that ever happened to me on the road. Well, the most miserable place I was in a place called Banda in Uttar Pradesh, India. And what's miserable about it is women in this area of India have zero rights. You go from being property of your family, and then you get married to your husband and you're property of his family. And if anything goes wrong in this transfer, let's say, for example, the person you were married to, he loses his job. So his family says, you know what? When you got married, you didn't really bring enough dowry money. Why don't you get out of here, you deadbeat, and you come back when you have more money. And they kick you out. Now you have zero value in this society. If you try to go back to your original family, they don't want you because you're a reject and you bring shame on their family. You have no education, no money, you have no options. And so a lot of women end up killing themselves. And you can feel this oppressive, nasty energy there in town. I followed a group of vigilantes who were fighting for women's rights there. And I saw a few of the cases. And the last couple ones bothered me so much that when I left, I said, I was like Jesus when he says, when you leave a town, if they won't receive your message, knock the dirt off your sandals as you leave. Like you just wash your hands of them. And that's how I felt when I left that place. I said, I want nothing to do with this place. I'm never coming back. Scariest memory was probably in this small town in Vietnam where they breed cobras for consumption. We walked around the town. We finally found some people who were willing to let us in for a price to see their cobra operation. We walk into this room with all these tiny wooden trap doors, and immediately they flip open a bunch of the trap doors and stick down a metal pole and pull out about 3 live cobras. Venomous, not defanged, not devenomed, and the cobras are just wandering around the room as we're filming. And then they keep picking up the snakes with the metal thing and try to hand it to me. Now I have no training with snakes, I have no gloves. And so I'm like, oh, no, that's okay, you know. But they tried about 3 or 4 times to hand me a cobra, head first. And, you know, I like to be adventurous in the show and push my limits, but a cobra bite will kill you in 15 minutes. So I always demur, no. Get to the end of the shoot, and I'm interviewing the guy, and I said, hey, I hear you have a cobra venom, anti-venom. I hear you have a cobra anti-venom. Can I see it? And they say, oh, you want to see it? $500 will show it to you, which was 3 times what we had to pay to go in. And I thought, you know what? That's why they were trying to fucking hand me these cobras. They were hoping I got bit. Because once you're bit, you have 15 minutes to negotiate. We would have to give them all our money to save my life. And so imagine filming with 3 live cobras wandering around the room and a guy trying to hand you one. It's not a rattlesnake, it's a freaking cobra.
Yeah, well, that sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
Oh man, having been to so many places, can you name a favorite place? Do you have a favorite country you've been to?
Well, I think every country has their specialty, so it kind of depends on your mood. If you want to really grow spiritually and have your mind blown, go to India. But you need to be ready for it. It's not a vacation, it's traveling. You'll need a vacation afterwards. If you want to really enjoy kind of a vivacious, in-the-moment type lifestyle, you're not worried about tomorrow, you're not thinking about yesterday, go to Brazil. That's their specialty. What's happening now? Let's enjoy our lives. If you want to have history and great food, go to Italy, for sure. And if you want to connect with locals right away and meet genuine, honest people who quickly open up to you, come to Romania.